Hey guys, welcome back to the Unshakable Founder. My name is Josh, and this is a series where I'm kind of documenting my process for reaching my first milestone in my business, which is 10K months. Now, I mentioned a couple of episodes ago that I was going to be launching my new program because I've been kind of refining it a little bit. It's changed somewhat, and I'm just about ready to launch and take on my first 5 founding members. I will let you guys know how that goes, but I'm planning to launch within the next couple days and start getting into calls to see who's the right fit for it. But that aside, I got to get into this really quickly because I was looking at my YouTube analytics and people usually only stick around on average for like a minute and a half. So I want to get in what I'm going to be talking about so that you guys can decide whether or not you want to stick around. So today I'm going to be talking about sharks. I'm going to be talking about understanding your why and how to breathe life into your why for why you're doing what you're doing. The third thing is, gotta look it up because I don't have it off the top of my head. The third thing I want to talk about is freedom. This idea of freedom and how it gets thrown around so much online, and I want to give a different perspective on it. And then lastly, and this one's a touchy subject, I'm going to be talking about the raids going on in Los Angeles right now because they are hitting a little too close to home, and I need to voice my thoughts on it. I'm not fully knowledgeable on, the specifics of what is happening, but it is affecting me and my family personally. So I want to speak on what I'm feeling about that and how it's kind of affecting my business and my focus and things like that. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is sharks because we all have sharks in our lives, and I'll tell you what I mean. So when I was a kid and I first started to learn how to swim, my grandparents had a pool, and this pool was pretty large. They had a deep end and a shallow end. And I was scared of going into the deep end, not because I couldn't swim, not because I was afraid of drowning, but because I was afraid of sharks randomly teleporting into the pool, which is so stupid, right? It's completely irrational. Why would that happen? They wouldn't even survive in chlorine water, right? And the reason why I had that in my mind is because I had seen the movie Jaws. And it made an impression on me, if you couldn't tell. And so I was thinking about this past week, about how we all have this idea of sharks in our lives, right? There are these things that we're scared of that we make up in our own mind that are completely irrational, but because we're thinking it could happen, we give it this sense of identity, this sense of reality that is not actually there. And we allow that to have an effect on how we behave, how we act. And that is where there's a problem. And this is what I see often with people who are just starting out their businesses or have not started because of the fears that they have around potential failure, of letting their families down, of being seen failing, all these different excuses and fears that come up that we make real with our mind, but that prevent us from otherwise enjoying life to its full potential. And that was the case with me for a little while when I was a kid. I couldn't enjoy the deep end because I didn't want to go in there. I was afraid of a shark just randomly showing up and eating me alive, which is crazy. But I want you to take kind of notice of where you're kind of seeing sharks in your life and ways you can kind of build evidence against the fact that there's not going to be a shark showing up randomly and eating you alive. It's just something that you're making up in your own mind, and finding ways to not allow it to prevent you from doing things that you could do that will allow you to enjoy life more. So that's the sharks thing. The second thing is about getting clear on your why. Now, what I wrote in my journal this week was this came about from reading Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why. And I was starting to kind of take note of all the things that I do to breathe life into what I believe and why I believe it. So the thing I wrote here is, I believe that we are all capable of more than we think. And I believe that it starts with mindset. And you've heard me talk about this before, where it starts with your thoughts, with your self-talk, with the stories you tell yourself, with the limiting beliefs that you may or may not know that you have. And that translates to how we feel, and how we feel kind of dictates how we behave. There are different percentages in terms of stats for how much of our actions are controlled by our emotions, whether they're conscious or subconscious. But the number is huge. It's like 70, 80, 90% of our decisions are based on our emotions. So if we are incapable or unwilling to examine our thoughts, to examine our self-talk, our limiting beliefs, if we're unwilling to dig deep and really understand why we think that and how we can fight against it, then you're really giving up total control of your life. And when I was I've been listening to Jim Rohn lately, and he's a man who inspired Tony Robbins and Alex Hormozy and people like that, like huge influential people who have seen massive success in the form of financial success, right? But Jim Rohn was saying that the ultimate form of maturity is taking full responsibility for where you are in life. Full responsibility in terms of your relationships, your health, your professional life, your finances, all of it. That's the ultimate form of maturity, is taking responsibility. And I don't feel like I started actually taking responsibility until I was in my mid-30s. And I'm still in my mid-30s now, but this was like 2 years ago. Jim Rohn said that this is the moment where you truly go from being an adult child to actually being an adult, taking that responsibility. And that kind of hit me, because I was like, man, I feel like part of me was living as a child, like living as someone who didn't want to take responsibility, giving up my control, giving up my freedom. And there's that concept of freedom that I'll touch on later, but giving up that freedom to kind of just let things happen, to kind of just live life on autopilot. I don't know if this is still recording, because it looks like the memory ran out. I'm going to pause it here really quickly. All right, we're back. I had to clear some space on the memory card, but it looks like it caught everything. So, yeah, I was talking about why I believe what I believe, and what I do to breathe life into those beliefs. So, I think I left off saying, like, I believe we are all capable of more than we think. And I believe it starts with mindset. I kind of covered that. I believe mindset is a skill we can all learn to make stronger. I believe that if you aspire for more, to be more, that I can inspire you to do more and have more. And it's through me posting on social media, by developing my unshakable founder system, connecting with other entrepreneurs, continuously learning and growing, doing things like this. This is part of me showing up every single week on YouTube, so that you guys kind of get an understanding of my thoughts, my thought process, what it is I'm going through, what it is I'm building, showing up every day, working one-on-one with people, and sharing my what I call believability gap concept, which I think I've shared on here once before, but I'm going to be sharing this multiple times. There are two things that I love to kind of repeat, and one is everything's a practice. There is no amount of, even if you're a master at something or you've mastered something, you still have to continue to practice it in order to stay good, right? To be a master at something, to be an expert at something. And I believe that everything's a practice, and it will always be a practice. And the other thing is the believability gap. Now, the believability gap, I call it the dream life believability gap. The reason why I call it that is because it's the space between what you truly desire and what you believe is possible for you. And for most of us don't think that earning $1 million within a year or 2 years is possible for us. And I'm the type of person that challenges you to really think about why that is. And it comes down to like 3 things primarily that I think you can ask yourself to empower you to figure it out. Because all of us, we all have access to the internet. We all have access to literally infinite knowledge to do whatever we want. It's just, is that effort worth it for you based on your current circumstances, based on what you currently know, and based on what you currently believe? And the answer is likely no. But that doesn't mean that you can't learn more over time. It doesn't mean that you can change your beliefs over time. It doesn't mean that your circumstances have to dictate your life in the future, because it doesn't. They don't. Circumstances, age, your abilities, these are all invisible walls that you place in front of yourself from getting what you actually want, because none of those things are anchors to your current life, insofar as them being anchors as much as you make them a reality. This is kind of going back to the shark idea. Like, these are your invisible anchors that you keep yourself trapped in this life. And I want to challenge you to understand that the only real thing keeping you trapped in the life that you don't want is this idea in believing that you can't change it. That's it. And the 3 questions that I have that can empower you are: number 1, is it worth it? Whatever it is that you want to do, that you desire to have, is it worth it? And if the answer is no, then you can just forget about it, right? But if it is, then do you believe you can do it? And if the answer is no, then it just means that you need more practice. You need to learn the skills to be able to achieve what's worth it for you. So, do you believe you can do it? And the last thing is, do you believe it'll work? And all that is requiring, or all that requires, in order to believe that something will work, is to explore other people that have already done it. Because more than likely, whatever it is you want to achieve, someone else has already done it, and you can essentially like learn from their process, replicate it, adapt to what's not working now, and make it your own. There are an infinite number of ways to achieve whatever it is you want to achieve. And people always say, like, I want to be a millionaire, or I want more money, but no one's willing to do the work to get there. And what people don't understand is that with money comes more responsibility. And people who are rich, people who are wealthy, people who have lots of money, take on more responsibility. At least, in my opinion, the good ones, right? The ones that are actually trying to make a difference in the world. They take on a whole lot of responsibility, and there can be a balance between doing the work and having a life where you get to spend it with your family in like shared experiences. And let's jump into the next topic, which is freedom. And so I wanted to talk about this last week, but I didn't get to it. And freedom is getting thrown around like crazy. Coaches, people who are trying to promote passive income, people promoting e-commerce, like, affiliate marketing, like all these different things that people are teaching other people to do. The thing I see advertised the most or promoted the most is you can get freedom. And I think freedom is the wrong word to use. There's a couple reasons why. So freedom implies that you're trapped. And I make the argument that none of us are trapped, because all of us have a choice, whether it's apparent or not, and whether that choice comes with risk or not, right? Because you may be faced with a choice where it seems like a non-choice, it's just risky, and you not willing to take on that risk doesn't make it any less of a choice. So one, I don't believe any of us are really trapped. I just think that we're not willing to make a choice that risks our safety or our family's lives, right? Like there are certain risks that we're not willing to take on. But then I also think that there are smart, calculated risks that you can find, that you can do if you just put in the effort to figure out what those are. So there's that aspect of it. And then what I truly think we desire is not freedom, because it also implies no responsibility. And like I mentioned before, having more money and making more money really comes with more responsibility and taking on more responsibility, especially if you're a founder or an entrepreneur or a business person. It means taking on responsibility. Now, the word that I would use is control. I think what we all desire is more control over how we make our money, what we work on, how we spend our quality time with our families. And the thing that gives us that control, that added control, is money. But again, you need to figure out what responsibilities are you willing to take on. And this is something that I work on in my program with my clients, is that is the work that you're doing meaningful to you as an entrepreneur, as a founder? Does it personally mean something for you to be solving this specific problem for people? Because if it isn't, then over the long term, it'll likely lead to burnout and probably quitting. And so for me, finding this specific niche within coaching, right? Like working with first-time founders, working on their mindset and shifting their limiting beliefs, shifting the stories they're telling themselves into something more productive, something that will allow them to execute with confidence. This is something that I'm deeply passionate about, and that I will continue to show up for day in and day out, so that I can figure out how best to solve that for the people that need it, for the people that are holding themselves back. And this all plays into, what I believe and the things I'm doing that breathes life into what I believe. And so freedom is not really the thing that I think you think it is. It's control. And it's control in the form of taking on responsibility that you care about, but that will eventually generate the money for you to exercise that control over your time, over your money, over your health, over your experiences in life. Control, not freedom, not the absence of responsibility, getting to do whatever you want, whenever you want. Like, obviously, you can't do that if you don't have money. So I just wish people would do away with the word freedom and promote taking back control of your life, taking responsibility of your life, of where you are. The last thing I want to talk about, I wanted to keep this video shorter, but it looks like it's going to run a little bit long again, is the raids going on in Los Angeles. So this is tough because I don't normally touch on things that are part of a political climate. But I'll share a little bit of what I wrote here and then kind of expand on it. But what I said was, families are being torn apart. There's no empathy or compassion for human beings. And the reason why I say this is because my sister is very idealistic in what she values and what she believes in, and she's very passionate about justice and righteousness and things like that. And so she sends me things occasionally, but because this is hitting a little bit closer to home, I started looking at some of the news articles and headlines that are being put out, and the picture that they're painting is very extreme. And what I saw quoted from the mayor of Los Angeles was completely different from what is being shown to the mass public, which is, again, extreme and violent and just overall crazy. But what got to me was the comments that I see people leaving, the comments from people that support these raids and these deportations that are tearing families apart. There is no regard for other human beings. There's this separate mentality of we versus them, when really it should be from a perspective of humanity. Like, we're all human beings. And there are people with established lives here. And it just doesn't seem right to me that something that is a civil offense, not a criminal offense, a civil offense, is being treated like the most violent criminal offenses that you can think of. And people are literally being treated like animals, like regular human beings, people who went to school here, people who have jobs here, people who pay taxes. And the status of their citizenship shouldn't be a factor in determining whether or not they deserve to be here. Because I fundamentally believe they deserve to be here, because more than likely they've been here more years than they've been in whatever country that their families are from or where they're from. And the reason why it hits so close to home is because we use a sitter who's undocumented. And we got a text from someone in that neighborhood where my son is staying that there were the immigration doing raids in that area. And so I had to go pick up my son, and it was so frustrating to think that these immigration officers are doing like really sketchy things in terms of how they pick people up, and having no regard for basic human decency or safety. My son was born here, but if he had been with someone who they thought, just based on the color of their skin, even if they were citizens, would be taken from said person and would be taken into custody, and then who knows what would happen to my son in that instance. And so there's this fear that it's leaving with our family. And this is not we're supposed to be living in a free country, in a country that was kind of founded on this idea of injustice. The way I kind of see it is like, if you're not Native American, right? If you're not Native American originally from here, then you came here illegally. And just because our forefathers or presidents after the forefathers created laws and a process for what it's like to come here legally, it's still like we're not like most of us are not originally from the United States. Like we have ancestors that come from other countries. And the thing that makes this country so great is the fact that we have so many different cultures and peoples. And I don't know what's happening. I honestly don't know what's happening in this country. And it's one of the reasons why I kind of stay out of it. But this particular issue just hit kind of close to home. And yeah, I just kind of had to speak my thoughts about it. Obviously, I don't have like very kind of well organized thoughts. It's just sharing, kind of just sharing what comes up as I think about it. And it's just scary, like thinking about the safety of my son. And the people that watch him are just, we love them. They're amazing people, and to think that they're being treated the way they're being treated is just, yeah, it's sad that our country's come to this, and it's sad that we're so divided, and it's sad that there are people out there who think they're thinking critically, but they're not. They're only like, there's so many people out there who are only willing to take evidence from one side and not consider holistically what is happening. Because I guarantee you, if the circumstances were flipped, the people who are supporting this would not be supporting this if, the shoe was on the other foot. Yeah. I think that's it for this week. Another quick update. I got a response back from the architect that I sent my portfolio and resume to, because I'm going to be needing to get a side job here to supplement my income, because I'm still at 0 months. Like, I had one month where I made some money as a coach, but yeah, financially things are getting a little tight, so I need to I'll be meeting the architect that I emailed next week, and so I'll be seeing if I get that part-time job. Asking for part-time because I am not going to go anywhere in terms of this coaching thing. I'm going to continue building, continue promoting, and continue to deliver when I can, so that I can improve this system and reach my 10K months. If I can reach those 10K months, like, I won't need a side job, and then looking to scale beyond that in the future. It's a process. It takes time. I'm not going anywhere. This is my mission that I'm on. I'm wholeheartedly dedicated to this mission, and I'll see you guys next week.